And the next question I have, and this happened to me when I was interviewing for colleges. I was going interviewing at a journalism school, and I remember my nerves got the best of me, and my
Mhm.
voice just went away. It had never
Mhm.
happened to me before. Obviously, I talk a lot, and I just didn't have voice. And I remember having to excuse myself to go get water because I just couldn't talk, and the nerves got the better of me. So, if people find themselves in that situation, what do you recommend?
Yeah, so anxiety looms large in all communication, but especially in interviewing and when we're put on the spot. And there are things we can do to manage our anxiety. But before I share those, I simply want to say being nervous is normal and natural. We have some evidence that says upwards of 85% of people feel nervous in high stakes situations. And quite frankly, I think the other 15% are lying. I think we could create a situation that makes them nervous too. So I want people to understand that when you feel nervous about a job interview, that's normal. That's natural. There's nothing unusual about it. But there are things we can do to learn to manage that anxiety. And it's really a two-pronged approach. I think we have a visual that speaks to this. We have to manage both symptoms and sources. Symptoms are the things that we physiologically experience. And that's what was happening for you, Andrew, when you shared that story about your interviewing for journalism schools. And then sources are things that initiate and exacerbate or continue that anxiety. So let me share with you just really quickly a few things we can do to manage symptoms. Some of us feel our heart pounding. Some of us get a little shaky. Some of us perspire. These, again, are normal and natural. The single best thing you can do is to take a deep belly breath. The kind of breath you would take if you've ever done Tai Chi or yoga, where you really fill your lower abdomen. The rule of thumb, or I like to joke, the rule of lung is you want your exhale to be twice as long as your inhale. I learned this from a guest on my podcast who shared this with me. And you really want that exhale to be twice as long. So if I take a three count in, I take a 6 count out. And the great thing is you only have to do this 2 or 3 times. So before I walk into the room where I'm being interviewed, I might do this. Before I unmute myself, if I'm on a virtual call, I take a couple deep breaths. This slows down your heart rate, slows down your speaking rate, can bring your voice back if you have the problem that Andrew mentioned, and it can really make you feel more in control in the moment. Now, if you're somebody who gets really shaky, that's adrenaline. Adrenaline's job is to move you from threat to safety. So do some movement. You've noticed that Andrew and I gesture with our hands. When we speak, I lean in a little bit. Those movements actually give that adrenaline a place to go. So we want to move with purpose. And then if you're like me and you blush and perspire, that's because your core body temperature is going up. When we get nervous, it's like we're exercising and we get hotter. So we need to cool ourselves down. And a great way to do that is to simply hold something cold in the palms of your hand. Before we got on this call today, I was holding a cold glass of water to make sure that I wasn't blushing and perspiring. The palms of your hand regulate and control your temperature. You know, on a cold morning, if you've ever had a warm cup of coffee or tea in your hands and it warms you up, we're just doing that in reverse. So there are many things we can do to manage symptoms. And I'm happy, Andrew, if you'd like to talk about sources as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. And especially, I do want to double down on the breathing part of it. And
Yes.
sometimes when people they think it's a little bit silly to do deep breathing, but it really does work. And there's actually a method, I believe it's the 4-7-8 method,
Yes.
which is basically you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold it for 7 seconds, and then you exhale loudly, even with a little bit of a noise, for 8 seconds. And that sort of has been shown to calm people down
Mhm.
just using sort of their nervous system. So if you have, I wouldn't say do it when you're in the interview or maybe around other applicants or in the waiting room, but maybe in your car, in a
Yeah.
stairwell, something, it's something that you could just do. And it really does just slow you down a little bit and gives you time to say, hey, you know what? I got this. So, but yeah, can we talk about the symptoms?
So some of the sources, sure. But before, I want to just echo what you said about breathing. That technique, and there are many other techniques, box breathing and different types of counting and breathing. All of that is to get you focused, centered, and to take advantage of your body's own relaxation response. And in every single one of these breathing techniques, they all have the exhalation longer than the inhalation. Now, there are also sources. These are the things that initiate and exacerbate our anxiety. Let me point out two. One is that when we answer interview questions or do any kind of spontaneous speaking, giving feedback, making small talk, we want to do it right. We want to give the best answer. We want to give the perfect way of responding. And that makes us very nervous. So what we need to do is we need to remind ourselves that the goal is just to answer the question, as I mentioned earlier. So the source of the anxiety is our wanting to get it right. And the way we manage that is just focus on getting it done and really connecting with the person we're speaking to. Another source has to do with the goal we're trying to achieve. We want to get hired or we want the next interview. And that anxiety about that goal can get in the way of us actually performing well. So instead of worrying about a potential negative future outcome, like not getting the job or not getting the next round of interview, get yourself focused on the present moment. And you can do that in several ways. Before you go into the interview or join the virtual call that you're being interviewed on, do something physical. Walk around the building. That will get you in your body and out of your future's perspective. Listen to a song or a playlist before you walk into the meeting. Athletes do this all the time to help them focus. I know a professional speaker. She plays Tetris. Tetris is very present oriented. She gets so involved, she has to set her timer to make sure she doesn't miss when she has to get out on stage. You can do something, play a video game, talk to a friend, do something that gets you present oriented. My secret, what I like to do to get present oriented, and this is a little silly, is I actually say tongue twisters. You can't say a tongue twister right and not be in the present moment. And it warms up your voice. So before I walk into an interview, before I get up on stage and give a big presentation or teach a class or even host my podcast, I will always say a tongue twister. Before we got on today, Andrew, I said my tongue twister a couple times. It allows you to get present and warm up your voice.
How do you deal with nervousness in an interview?
One of the things that I've found to be help people a lot is taking the value of silence and pauses. So I've seen the way nerves manifest in a lot of people is talking very quickly, fidgeting, nodding a lot, and it really shows a lot of nervous energy, and it rubs off as a lack of confidence. So what I would say is slowing down, not being afraid of silence in the interview. You know, even if you were to ask me a question on this interview, Andrew, that I wasn't sure about the answer with, I'd say, hold on, let me gather my thoughts with that. What I would say to that is, right, and probably, put yes in the chat if that felt fine, if that felt normal, if you didn't think that I totally freaked out and was unconfident there. So put yes in the chat if you feel that, but no, if you don't. But I like to get both sides. But just taking that moment to breathe, think, it helps us to come across as more confident, even if we're not. Nerves are natural.
Thanks for watching. Some great advice there. Hope you found it useful and informative. If you're looking for additional guidance on your career journey, click the buttons on the screen to see the next video in the series, or watch the full-length episode for more tips. Both videos are also listed in the description below.